Hi, thank you so much for joining me in today's live podcast recording. I'm going to record the podcast episode live, and if you have any questions, make sure to add them in the chat, and I'll try to stay around for a few minutes after the podcast to answer your questions. In today's episode of Leadership English, we're going to talk about the benefits of advocating for yourself and for your team to get communication training that is made specifically for your experience as a non native speaker. My name is Tanya Suarez, and I'm a communication coach specializing in working with international professionals who are non native speakers. And if you haven't already, make sure to go to tanyasuarez.com/lead to download this awesome 13-minute training about the 3 essentials of American leadership communication. Understanding cultural differences can really help you have more clarity and communicate more effectively. Now, what we're going to do today is we're going to not only go through the benefits of getting very specific training, but I'm also going to show you how to present things in a persuasive way. Because there is a difference when you're not a native speaker, you tend to be so focused on being correct that a lot of times I find that my clients will share the what. We'll just get very factual because that's a safe zone. It could be what's on your PowerPoint presentation. It could be what you have practiced and you feel comfortable speaking. But that's not the most effective way to be persuasive and make an impact and have more influence, which adds to your executive presence. So today we're going to do both of those. I'll teach you some techniques as I'm showing you the benefits. Okay, so the first benefit of having training, communication training that is designed for you and for your team and for your company, for the specific members who are non-native speakers, is that it will add more perspectives. Now, this is really important because if you're trying to get your company or you're trying to persuade your HR to fund the training, if you just focus on your benefits, like, oh, it'll help me feel more confident, honestly, that's not going to be persuasive enough because you haven't tied it into how it benefits the company. So this is where you want to make sure you're not always centered on yourself or focused on the facts. You want to focus on the benefits. And this will be really good for persuading HR. This is really good for client relations. And it's also good for small talk. It helps you understand a more empathetic approach for connecting with people. So, what I mean by more perspectives and how this benefits the company is that a lot of times, even at the highest C suite level of leadership, I find that when a non native speaker is in those positions, it can be really daunting. It can be really nerve wracking to see that most of the company might be native speakers. And so they participate in meetings, they share their ideas freely because they don't have that self consciousness of feeling they're going to be judged for how they pronounce something or their grammar. And so, what you're doing as a company is you're not using your greatest talents optimally. In order for this person to showcase their expertise, to contribute solutions, to contribute in meetings in a way that can lead to really great developments, they have to feel more confident about their language. And so this is a difference between leadership communication training that's standard for native speakers and really offering something that's specific to the non-native speaker experience because their issues are different, which means that the solutions are going to be different and they need to be a little more tailored to help them work through that confidence barrier, that linguistic barrier, and not only be able to communicate it clearly, whereas maybe for a native speaker, it's just about being more persuasive. For a non-native speaker, it's understanding what does persuasive mean in American corporate culture. It's also about having the confidence to speak up and not worry about making mistakes. So this is an added layer that can be really beneficial. And the more perspectives that you have, the more solutions that you have. And again, you're paying top dollar to have these managers and executives. You want to get the most out of them. These people are so full of knowledge and experience, and you're not getting that from them if they can't communicate that confidently. Another benefit is better representation. Now, of course, this could mean from the DEI perspective that you have more diverse voices, but what I actually mean, and again, this is the difference between trying to persuade someone based on what you think is good, because you might think absolutely diversity and inclusion are really important. Sometimes that's not going to convince a company to invest tens of thousands of dollars in training. So you want to focus on, okay, what will persuade them, what will help them see the value that they get by offering me this training or my team or my company. What I mean by better representation is that for non native speakers, because there are those moments of insecurity that might make them be more serious or shyer, or perhaps because of cultural differences, they might be more aggressive instead of diplomatic because that's the way that you negotiate in their culture, and they don't realize that that's not the most effective for the American culture. And so, what I mean by better representation is that your executives and your managers, they're able to represent the company better. You will be able to trust to send them out to negotiate deals with clients, to go to conferences and represent your company with the integrity and the values that the company wants to put out there for their reputation. So this is what I mean by better representation. Of course, we want more diversity, but at the end of the day, that might not be the convincing factor for your company to invest in this kind of bespoke training. But when you present to them, this will help you have way more people as a resource to put in these situations instead of always sending the same three because the rest of the team doesn't quite have that communication solid. This will be an added benefit. And the third benefit is to attract and retain talent. This is crucial in this global corporate environment. Globalization is wonderful, and we're really spoiled that English is a default language for business. So, what this allows you to do by having English and American English leadership communication training for your company and for yourself and for your team, it allows you to offer the resources that will help attract the top talent, that will take them away from maybe their native speaking company and be open to positions in these bigger companies or in different cities and have the resources that they need to thrive. And when they thrive, your company thrives. So this is really important to help them see. This is also a great way to, if they're considering two contracts, again, when you're getting at these high levels and you're trying to attract C-suite, for example, there are few people that can apply for these positions and that qualify. So if they're between your company and another, but they know they're going to get the language resources and the confidence that they need to be successful at your company, that's also going to give you a competitive edge. And it doesn't have to be super complicated. What I find that a lot of companies shy away from is, oh, then we have to pay this team and put them in hotels and all these other complications. But the beautiful thing about virtual culture is that you can have top talent anywhere in the world come to you anywhere in the world. And so something that I want you to think about is not only being open to virtual trainings because the cost is less in terms of getting the person there as well as hosting the team, but it allows your company and your team members and training in a way that fits the schedule better. So instead of doing 6 hours to go to this 2 hour training because you have to move locations, etc., you get the 2 hour training on their computer and then they're back to work. So this will make it a lot more efficient. Now, when you're doing these workshops, I will give you some tips. Whether you're working with me or you're working with other communication coaches, don't go for general topics. What I do is I make sure that not only am I talking to the HR, but I talk to the managers of the teams that I'm training because I want to know, yes, I have my standard template for the trainings that I do, but I want to know specifically not only just for your company, but for the 20 people that I'm training in your team, what are their weaknesses? Do they need training for how to close, or do we need to focus more of the training on how to open and warm up the client? That's really going to help me. For example, I had a meeting with a manager and she really was able to break down, you know what? We really need email training. We do most of our, it's not really about spoken English. We do most of our sales via writing, and the email correspondence is really not effective enough. So that was really helpful because instead of doing this general American communication training, I was able to give them very specific tips on email culture. And then I was able to actually make it more bespoke and have the team send me email samples so that I could show them, pinpoint, this is what you're doing and this is how you can do it better. So the transformation is a lot faster and you'll see the impact of that much sooner. Now, for online training, this is great because it could be a program. For example, I have a leadership communication program. That's something that's self paced. For mine, it comes with group training. So not only do they get this really amazing, intensive online program, but they also have a chance to ask questions and to be pushed a little further. And this is something that I don't want you to just send your team to. Take the time to coordinate with the trainer and let them know this is what I see being an issue. You might not know that it's a cultural issue, but the trainer will. So when I have managers or HR tell me some of their issues and I look at the demographics of who I'm training, I can tell, oh, okay, these are issues because of the cultural communication differences. So when you're able to present the problems, it'll get you the solutions better and faster. And for one on one coaching, this is awesome, especially for executives because they don't have as much time to go through group training. So I find with one on one coaching, it's a really great way for me to get in there and we identify what are 3 things or 5 things that are the most important for you. And we make sure that we target those. And then I can digress and find other things that might be beneficial to that skill. So, this is something that can be really helpful for you. And notice that when you're trying to persuade someone, when you're trying to connect with someone, make it less about you. For example, I could have said, oh, it's a lot easier for me to work from my computer instead of traveling to different cities and different countries. That's not going to impress you. That doesn't matter to you. But when I frame it in what's important to you, that it's more time efficient, you can invest the money that it would take to fly out a team and instead afford to train more people because it's virtual, then that's where you really see the financial benefit. So, understanding and approaching conversations, especially persuasive conversations, with empathy and understanding what the other person wants and needs to hear is very, very effective. And it also makes you feel good because you come across as someone who cares because you really have to pay attention and understand the other person. And that's a very really great way to connect with people and to let them know that you see them and that you're here for them. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I'm looking forward to seeing you next episode of Leadership English. And make sure to download the audio training, The 3 Essentials of American Leadership Communication. All right. Thank you so much. I'm going to take a little moment to look at some of the questions that we have here, and then I'll jump off. Okay. Hi, Leo. Yes, I'm back. I took a little break from doing the live recordings, but I love doing these. So I'm back to answer your questions. Okay. And then let me look over here. I have some questions. I'm streaming live on YouTube and on LinkedIn and on Instagram. Yes, so I will save this live, and this is going to be on YouTube as well as on my podcast. And I'll share all of that on LinkedIn in my newsfeed, and I'll also share it in the stories for Instagram. Now, the other thing I want to mention, because I like to teach by example, notice that when I give my presentations, and Apple does this too. Like, this is something really beneficial for you, but it's really hard as a non native speaker. Notice that my slides only have 1 word or just a few words. So it's not super text heavy. The reason I do it is not only is it more engaging for the audience because you don't have people reading everything that you have and it doesn't look overwhelming, but the other thing is it forces me to share and not to present. And that's something that I coach. As a non-native speaker, it's hard to let go of that of like, no, I need to prepare, I have to memorize, I want to make sure that I'm delivering everything correctly. And I understand you are afraid of, or you just don't want to make grammar mistakes that might make you feel like you come across as less professional. But train yourself to share. Train yourself to have one keyword. I don't even have notes because when I practice, because I practiced before this a few days, I just look at that word and I'm like, okay, what story can I give? What's important? How can I connect with my audience? And the first few times that I do it, I suck. And that's okay. I'm a native speaker and I'm a communication expert. Be okay with being bad, but you have to give yourself time to be bad and then accept that simple is better. As a non native speaker, you are overcomplicating your English. I tell my clients this all the time. Non native speakers usually speak better English than native speakers because you're so focused on the advanced level and the intricacies of grammar. American English is pretty simple. So get it out of your system. And every time you practice the slide or the presentation, figure out what is the simplest way I can say this? What matters to the audience? And that's going to help you present more effectively. So you want to share. That way you don't memorize. All right. Yes, thank you for sharing that. I'm doing this on YouTube, which is why I wasn't looking over here. Oh my gosh, you're watching both? That's awesome. This is great. Hello, Italy and Brazil. Okay, so I see a lot of pronunciation requests over here. If you like to learn advanced American English pronunciation tips, I share a lot of those on Instagram. So I'm actually going to shut off this live and go over here and work on some pronunciation. Thank you so much for joining me. If you have any questions about the services that I offer or how I can best help your company offer this kind of bespoke high level training for your non native speakers, feel free to message me on LinkedIn or email me and just go to my website to book a call at tanyasuarez.com.